Well, looks like I did it again. Missed something. Was working and came across this little sleeve on the bench and started to think, hey, wait a minute, where's that go? And sure enough, it actually goes right here on the shaft. This is supposed to be in here like this. And what this sleeve does is this sleeve keeps this part from being able to do what it's doing right there and try and move over that way. So unfortunately, I've got to take this shaft out to put this sleeve on, and to do that I've got to take off my little shutoff cam clip here. Oh well, nobody's perfect. Okay, I've got that sleeve in where it should be. That was easy. Alright, since I've got it sitting right here on the bench, I'm going to sort out this bottom plug issue here. This is the O-ring, the original O-ring that came off, and this is the original plug, and the kit came with this new plug. Let's search in the kit for this size O-ring. Well, this is the only large O-ring left in the kit that's the same color as that one, but it's too small, so that ain't it. And then I found this kit, this O-ring in the kit. It's a different color, but it's a better match size wise, so I think I'm going to go with that. But I'm going to check the parts list and see if it's supposed to be an O-ring or if it's supposed to be a washer. Alright, now there's some residue on here from the old O-ring, and also on here from the large O-ring, and I want to clean that up before I reassemble this. Alright, so that's what it looks like cleaned up. Couldn't get all of this off of here, but cleaned it up quite a bit. Just going to put a tiny bit of lubricating fluid on that O-ring so that as I tighten it, it doesn't damage the O-ring too badly. Now the torque spec says the end plate bottom plug, which would be this, gets torqued 30 foot-pounds, but it's got that asterisk on it again. So I'm going to take away the, what was it, 30%? Forgot how much it was. Yeah, it was 30%, so I'm going to torque this to 21 foot-pounds. Oh, that's quite a bit of torque for such a little plug. So I got to mount it on my little workbench here again. Well, that's crazy tight. I am not torquing it any more than that. I can tell that I've got that really tight. If I try and put 21 foot-pounds of torque onto this thing, I'll tell you what, I'll end up stripping those threads right out of that aluminum. Now on the parts list, it actually shows this as a plug, a threaded plug that threads up inside there. So maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's what makes it different, I don't know. All I know is I've got that really tight with an O-ring in there. I have no reason to believe that's going to leak. Next thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the two O-rings, original O-rings on this little screen assembly, and figure out which ones in the kit are the correct size to replace these two. Here's my two originals. Well, looks like a close match right there. And this one is a perfect match for the larger black original one. This is some sort of a regulating unit because it's spring-loaded. If I put the point in here, I can actually push in this end of this valve, and there's a spring inside there. To get all of those guts out, I've got to take out that set screw down in there, which I'll do that. Alright, now I'm going to open up that little check valve assembly inside this here. This is, I believe, a fuel regulating assembly. On the pump version that I have some documentation for, they show that that's actually almost like in a separate channel on the side of the end cap. So in other words, on my end cap, my check valve valve assembly is actually in with the inlet screen, all in one part of the house, the end cap. On this version, you can see the inlet screen here. You can see the port on the bottom that I put that plug in. That plug, by the way, this plug, by the way, is a plug you can take out and hook up a gauge to test your transfer pump pressure. But anyways, you can see this actually has a separate section of the end cap here that came in at an angle, and it shows the little spring and little check valve, and they're calling this the regulating valve assembly. So I think this is for fuel pressure regulation on the inlet side. So that's why I want to take that apart. So it's a hex drive, and just gonna put that in there. Broke this ratchet, haven't gotten around to replacing it. Alright, cut this just enough. Turn it with my fingers now. So now, before it completely comes out, I'm going to take it out of my vise here. There is a spring in there, so I want to be careful, make sure nothing goes flying. Don't know how much tension there is on that spring. Apparently not much at all. There's the little plug. And then the spring, and then the little piston. And that appears to be all that's in there. It doesn't look like there's any seals or anything inside there that I need to be concerned about. So I'll give that a good cleaning and then just reassemble it. Uh-oh. Something just occurred to me. When I went to put this plug back in, I noticed that it seemed to go in quite a ways. And it just occurred to me now that as I screw that plug in, that puts tension on that spring. So the further I screw it in, the more tension there is in the spring. So I'm thinking that might actually be an adjustment. And now that I've taken it out, I don't know what it was set at before. I think I may have fouled things up here. So since this is a pressure regulator, I'm thinking that this might be an adjustment that has to be made after the pump is maybe installed and running, and I have a pressure gauge on the output port. I don't know. I'll see if I could find anything in the literature on that. Well, I did find some information out, not about this exact regulator assembly, but about the other style regulator assembly, which, if I can find a picture of it for you. Okay, so on the later styles of pumps that have the high pressure output nozzles coming out of the back there, the regulator is actually this assembly here, and there's that adjustment. Here's the breakdown of it right here. So you can see there's the plunger, there's the spring, and there's the little plug. And what this says is, this says when you're installing that, install the piston to the regulator with the piston bore facing the inlet end of the regulator. The piston should not bind or stick with the regulator bore. Install the regulating spring. Install the end plate adjusting plug with a 5/36" hex key wrench until it is flush with the inlet side of the regulator. So I think it's not necessarily that that plug gets installed to a certain tension or adjustment. I think it's actually just supposed to be installed until it's flush with some point. This is all just theoretical at this point, but I don't really have anything else to go on. So I think what I want to do is, I want to get this screen off, which is easier said than done. I certainly don't want to damage the screen. The screen is not attached up at the top here. You can actually wiggle it. It's tight on this bottom part, but I'm thinking that if I can slide it down this way, it might pop off, because it's a tapered spring. You can screen. You can actually see it's wider at the top here than at the bottom. So I think, again, if I push it off that way, it'll slide right off. That's the theory, anyways. Yeah, I could definitely see some debris down behind that screen, and I'll tell you what it is. It's I noticed that when I was cleaning this fitting, there was a lot of hardened, almost like pipe dope or some sort of a sealant, pipe sealant. You can still see the remnants of a little bit there in the threads. I cleaned most of it out, but that had hardened, and chunks of that have been falling into there, and the only thing keeping them from getting into the pump is this screen, and they are now trapped in that area behind the screen. But let that be a lesson. I certainly don't want to use any kind of pipe dope or sealant on these threads. If I want to seal it, well, I guess I could use a Teflon based one, and I also want to make sure I keep it at the off of the threads that are going to be exposed on the inside, or a Teflon tape.